that in turn can actually encourage your learner to get more involved in the learning process. History can be something that is either really dry in subject matter, or you can evoke those interests a little bit more, take it to the next level, and it can become a subject that your child and you can be very, very interested in. Hello guys, and welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be talking to you guys all about read alouds and the importance of doing read alouds that are history focused. Now today's video is actually a collaboration hosted by my friend Leilani over at Living with Eve, and it is all about history. You're going to find all kinds of things here. Today, like I said, I'm going to be talking to you about the importance of including historically focused read alouds in your read alouds, but also you're going to be hearing about different eras of history, some resources for those, and so you're definitely going to want to check out the playlist down below. Like I said, lots of other homeschool moms are involved in this collaboration as well, so if you're looking for anything history related, you want to make sure you check out that playlist and make sure to head over to Leilani's channel as well. Now, if you have been around my channel for any length of time, you know that I have a huge passion for read alouds. Now, this is something that was sparked in me from a very, very, very young age. My stepmom actually used to read to us every night, doing voices, making everything she read interesting to the point where we would hang on to every last word that she read. My grandma, even from a very young age, was very diligent about reading to my sister and I. And so reading is just very much something that I have always enjoyed sharing with my children as well, as a way to spark interest in learning and reading themselves. And that's one of the first benefits that I would say is a huge one, is that by doing read alouds, we spark the interest of that in our own children. Now, in regards to how it enhances history, there are huge benefits to doing like historical focused, whether it be even historical fiction type read alouds. And actually I have two examples of that right here in our morning basket next to me. One of those is Across 5 Aprils, and this happens to be a historical fiction book that takes place during the Civil War. So this is an example right here of what can be a really, really good benefit. And I'm going to talk a little bit more how I choose what we read as our read alouds, and how you can find those resources to choose for yourself or use a list that's already been laid out by a curriculum that you may choose. So the main benefit, I would say, even if you're using a book that is historical fiction, like this one, and then this one, of course, is nonfiction. Okay, so there are benefits to using both, obviously. But I think one of the biggest benefits to using, for example, historical fiction is that a lot of times you get immersed in the characters and the situations. Now, with that, I would say that if you are choosing historical fiction books, please make sure that they are really good quality literature. There is a lot of books out there that just are not really great quality, and they're not written in what's called a living book style. Well, living books is something that evokes emotions within you, but it also really creates a mood and an atmosphere as you read it that articulates what is trying to be portrayed in the book. Okay, so you can almost immerse yourself in that place, and that is what we call good quality living literature. Now, like I said, I will get to resources on how to find good quality literature in a little bit. I almost got ahead of myself. But what are some other benefits that we can have by making sure that we include read alouds? Of course, like I said, it can be immersive, but more specifically what it does is it can actually connect the reader or listener to the characters and context within a historical time period, but also historical events, of course. And that can be really, really important in solidifying an idea of what has been learned in history or what is being learned in history, and then actually applying the context of that into what is being read, even in a historical fiction book. It just makes it come alive, and that in turn can actually encourage your learner to get more involved in the learning process. History can be something that is either really dry in subject matter, or you can evoke those interests a little bit more, take it to the next level, and it can become a subject that your child and you can be very, very interested in. I also mentioned a second ago about the emotions. I think that that's a really important aspect as well, because it's one thing to learn about historical events and the context of it relating to characters, but it takes it to a whole nother level when you can actually feel almost immersed in it to actually understand the emotions of what some of the people went through in the books relating to history. So it can be a huge, huge benefit. Also, one of my favorite benefits of reading aloud, of course, outside of like the history aspect of things, any read aloud, just reading aloud in general can really, really boost the relationship value between you and the listener, your child. And it's just something that is such a blessing. I mean, like I said, I look back on my childhood and I can remember specifically certain books my stepmom read, certain books my grandma read, certain books my mom read, so on and so forth. And it is because it enriched that relationship. It was something that they took time to really focus, and we were together in that moment to explore and read a book, and it was just very special. It was a very present moment. And so creating those moments by doing something like read alouds can be extremely beneficial, and again just increases that learning value all the more. One more thing I forgot to mention, and that is the value of vocabulary. Now, especially even in books like Little House on the Prairie, there can be certain words or things in the historical context, I'm messing up my words now, in the historical context that can be so beneficial in just creating an understanding and bigger vocabulary. Because like I said, there are words for different things that they use just in their everyday life, and it's like, I'm 36 years old, but I still don't know what that is. And so what do? We go and we look it up and we learn more vocabulary. So it can be very, very enriching. And you guys, I think everybody is very aware of this right now, but I feel like there is a huge lack of just vocabulary in general nowadays. I mean, for goodness sake, we're replacing words and feelings and emotions with emojis rather than actual words. So enriching vocabulary can be very, very important right now. Okay, so now let's move on to the next thing. And let's talk about those resources and how exactly I utilize those and how I match it up with our time periods. Now, currently we are using My Father's World. It is a literature-based curriculum, kind of similar to Sunlight, that already picks and chooses what read alouds to do, and it paces them in your teacher guide to kind of line up with where you are in history as much as possible. Now, beyond that though, I also add more read alouds to our homeschool as well. And I will share those resources that I use to choose those. But another great curriculum that is literature based that also does that, like I mentioned, is Sunlight. Even Story of the World will give you literature selections that are really, really good quality literature as well. And so as far as just resources to help you choose really good quality literature, a few of those that I seek out are Read Aloud Revival offers different reading lists. There's reading lists for boys, girls, different history, age groups, things like that. It breaks it down in those different ways. Another one is Heritage Mom Blog. She actually offers reading lists, which is really great, I think, to make sure that you check out, because it is important to make sure that our books are very diverse in what we choose. It's just important, and I think sometimes we inadvertently kind of forget to include a more diverse look into history. Another really, really good resource that I love is, of course, I mentioned Sunlight, but their Sunlight reading lists. A lot of times what I will do is that if we are studying a certain part of history, then I will go to Sunlight's website and I will find the literature pack for whichever era of history that we are learning about, and I will choose selections from what they've chosen. So that is one way that I choose our literature selections a lot. Like I mentioned, if we are learning about a certain era and I don't already have some books in mind, then I will go to those different reading lists and get ideas, and that helps me to choose. But I also I think because I enjoy reading, and because of kind of the history in my own life of people reading to me growing up, I'm familiar with a lot of titles on my own that I know to plug in certain places. Okay, so what I typically do when I'm actually choosing things, if I want to add to it or kind of make my own literature selections for our history curriculum, is I will actually look at kind of the timeline within my teacher's guide or whatever, and I will look at the smaller chunks within the era of history that we're studying. What are the highlights of those smaller chunks? So like, for example, the Great Depression era. Okay, well, you can even Google children's read alouds for the Great Depression era. It will bring up picture books, it will bring up chapter books, but it's also important to be able to sift through those, because there, like I said, there are so many books and resources out there that it's hard to tell sometimes if you're not familiar with a title. It's hard to tell sometimes if it's going to be good quality literature. So that's why I mentioned those resources of like Read Aloud Revival book lists and Heritage Mom Blog and Sunlight. And there are even books like Honey for a Child's Heart. That is a Charlotte Mason-y book that gives some book selections that are more living books type literature. And so those are all great resources where you can go just to kind of check and make sure. And then another thing is also checking within the homeschooling community. On my channel, I share a ton about read alouds. My goal each month is actually to share what is in our morning basket each month. And I try to do that in plenty of time to help any of you all who are looking for selections to make sure that they are, quote, safe selections, in the sense that they're not going to have like inappropriate things that we don't want to expose our children to yet. And then there's a lot of other mamas within the same homeschooling community here on YouTube or Instagram that give really great selections as well. When in doubt, you can always utilize those places to glean from. I hope this video acts as a positive resource for you all, just on the benefits on how literature can enhance your history, but also as a place that gives resources of where I find book lists and things like that to help me choose read alouds for our homeschool. So I hope that you guys will join me on future videos. If you're not subscribed, make sure you push that subscribe button down below. Check out the other ladies' videos on the playlist. I know I can't wait to, because history happens to be my favorite subject ever. So I'm going to be checking out everybody's videos as well. And I will see you guys next time. I hope you have a blessed day. I also thought of a few more other curriculums, if you're interested, that are more of a living books history-based curriculum, literature-based history, and that is Beautiful Feet books. And 5 in a Row a lot of times will include a lot of really good history-based literature as well, but especially Beautiful Feet, like I mentioned, because it is specifically history with literature-based history. So those are a few resources and curriculums that if you are looking for something that includes a lot of literature or read aloud selections, those are some good ones to look at.